Matt Schmidt of Veeam. It's great to talk to you. Thanks very much for your time today. What are some of the issues that you've seen agencies run into as they are adopting DevSecOps practices and building DevSecOps environments across the federal government? Matt, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. As you said, my name's Matt Schmidt. I represent Veeam, but Veeam has a product line known as Kasten, and Kasten is focused on doing backup and disaster recovery and data and application migration for cloud native implementations of Kubernetes. Some of the big challenges that we see are lack of understanding of the importance of cloud native tech and the fact that they've been using this technology on their smartphones, tablets, work computers, personal computers on a daily basis. You know, if you're using Netflix or Hulu or Apple Store or any of these different applications like Amazon and eBay and Citibank and you just name it, all these applications now on our smartphones and our daily interaction are underpinned by cloud native technology and most of the time with Kubernetes and containers. And so it's really important for folks to realize that it's already prime time, this technology, this cloud native technology. It's not a science project and it's already all around us. And we have the natural expectation that we want that type of form factor when we work with any commercial institution or the federal government. And so some of the big challenges are awareness of this technology or how mainstream it is and how we've already adopted it in our personal lives. And so we have a big issue. It's new tech when we go to the cloud and use DevSecOps, and the infrastructure is different. The approach to writing code is different, and there's a shared responsibility model. And what we mean by a shared responsibility model is in the cloud, you're typically using somebody else's infrastructure. It might be a data center in a different location. It might be a commercial or government cloud. It might be all of those together. And so the cloud provider, the infrastructure provider is responsible for some controls. The independent software vendor like Kasten is responsible for some controls. The end user is responsible for controls. And we have to trust that everyone's doing their part to manage those controls and to continuously monitor them. And so the challenges are in our traditional data center, it's sized to some peak workload that may or may not take place during the year. And the traditional data center is very static and everything's built on trust. And whereas in the cloud, there is no firewall or physical perimeter, it's all logical. And so basically the least common denominator becomes the identity. And so there's like a different school of thought that's required here, but we have enough experience. We have 9 years now working with this cloud native technology. And so what really cloud native technology is doing is giving us all the opportunity to eliminate this technical debt that we have from these legacy applications that have been around for a very, very long time supporting the government mission on-prem. And so just lifting and shifting these applications to the cloud, it's not really getting the full benefit of the cloud. It's basically you're just moving your infrastructure from an internal cost to some subscription or some annual cost. And so there's a big people process change that has to take place with using this new type of cloud native technology. And there's a lot of support in place and awareness. Some organizations are using software factories where they're providing all the infrastructure that's necessary to run containers. And so the end user then just comes up with their containers and a different group is managing that infrastructure and providing the ATOs and the continuous ATOs and everything required where you come to the table, your group does, with your container. And a really good example of that is what's going on with the Veterans Administration with VA Platform One, what we call VAPO. And Matt Fuqua there is basically providing that type of software factory for the modernization of VA applications to be cloud native. But it's important for overcoming these challenges is to look at what others are doing. There's nothing wrong with looking over somebody's shoulder and adopting what makes the most sense for your business. Maybe there's some more drag or more friction that needs to be in place, or maybe there's less. So the VA Platform One, they looked at all the different software factories that were out in DoD, and they adopted the one from the Air Force, but they made massive changes such that it would align with the VA mission. And so that's a really good example of a huge impact that's taking place in our veterans or will happen in our veterans' everyday life is by what the VA has done. So the Air Force probably has 50 different software factories. The Navy has their own. The Army has their own. But it's okay to have all these software factories because we have to up level our people's skill sets, our processes, and so it's okay to have a lot out there. But at some point, we'll come to this fork in the road where we'll have to start consolidating and rationalizing our software factories. We just can't support all this proliferation of new software factories. But now it's essential to up-level our skill sets.
You used a term, Matt, that I think is really interesting, and you talked about that people process change that has to happen. What are the steps that one takes to analyze where someone is right now in order to understand what the change is that has to happen? I'm sure there's not a blueprint that works for every single organization. I imagine everybody's in a different starting point and has different tools to work with and so on. Is that fair read on my part?
Yeah. So what's really important is to look at the number of applications that support your mission, your line of business, and just figure out what is the total cost of ownership. And then maybe compare that with another agency that's already gone through this transformation just to see, were they able to get the benefit from using somebody else's infrastructure and using cloud native technology? And once they get a vision and they get comfortable, hey, this is the art of the possible is there. Then they need to start looking and rationalize their all the different applications that they have, and prioritize them into like tier 1 apps, tier 2, tier 3, and also what is our availability of skill sets to do this migration, not just lift and shift, but transformation. And also maybe they want to look to see if there's a GOTS solution, a government solution out there that they could leverage as a SaaS model, or a COTS solution that has the necessary accreditation to work within the federal government. But they got to start somewhere. And what's really driving organizations forward now is the fact that VMware was acquired by Broadcom. And we all have heard about price increases now with Broadcom of 3x to a much higher number of annual cost. And so most agencies just don't have that extra money lying around, and they're being forced into looking at modernization and speeding it up and reducing their dependency on VMware. And so that is being a forcing function. And it's a mistake for someone to say, well, we'll just pay the renewal this year. We've got a multi-year deal. We'll worry about it in a few years. That's too late. You got to get started now. You just can't kick the can down the road. And so by VMware being acquired by Broadcom, indirect effect, it's giving us all a kick in the seat to modernize and to eliminate our technical debt and go to something that's future-proofed.
Matt, I appreciate your time today, and thanks for the chance to chat with you.
Thanks, Francis.